This is a story that could literally go anywhere in the next hour. We're going to seek now the guidance of Mr John Boothman, Scottish political correspondent for The Times, to see just how febrile things are, because it seems as though before the weekend, Humza Yousaf, John, if I may say so, was going to hang on in there. He was talking about forging, you know, a sort of friendship with all of his various foes, and it was all going to be fine. He was going to survive the vote of no confidence on Wednesday. But it seems as though he's had some second thoughts over the weekend.
Yesterday, he spent the day being told by some of his senior colleagues that possible deal with Alex Salmond really wasn't possible, on the basis that there is so much animosity towards Alex Salmond and the Alba party within the SNP, particularly from the Nicola Sturgeon wing of the party. He had already exhausted his possibilities with the Greens. They had some talks again with the leadership over the weekend, and yesterday morning the Green co-leader Lorna Slater said she couldn't imagine any circumstances where a deal could be reached. That was followed by an attempt by Humza Yousaf's supporters to try and pick off a couple of the Greens who they thought might come over, because all he needs, after all, right, is one vote, and he would win. He would tie the votes in the Parliament and he'd win the confidence vote. But that appears to have failed. So Humza Yousaf told his colleagues last night that it was his intention to go. At least that's what they're telling us, hence the front page of the Times this morning, and we're really expecting that to happen today. Already it's the case that, you know, there's people circling around thinking about who might be next and what kind of process there would be to replace Humza Yousaf.
Yes. I mean, even as late as yesterday morning, I watched Ian Blackford on Laura Kunsberg's show, more or less sort of talking it through and saying, oh, don't worry, everything's going to be fine, you know, trying to put up a united front. I heard Stephen Flynn doing the same thing on Saturday as well. They've tried to put up a united front, but it's very clear that it's very far from united, even inside the SNP, isn't it?
It's been utterly chaotic. I mean, the thing that's really interesting when you talk to just about everybody, Mike, is that they don't understand how they've actually got here.
Right.
A week ago, Humza Yousaf was telling us this arrangement, which was the centrepiece of his election strategy 13 months ago when he got elected, was worth its weight in gold. And yet on Wednesday night, he made a call to the Greens to come in and see him on Thursday morning. That meeting was a very short meeting, and he literally bundled them out of the front door. And everything since then has just, you know, it really, look, his 13 months in office have been typified by, you know, somebody who's really not in control of events but at the mercy of events. And he's just made a huge miscalculation here, and now he's got nowhere else to turn.
Right, incredible, isn't it? And what about Alex Salmond? I mean, I know that we're told that there's plenty of people within the SNP, particularly the Nicola Sturgeonites, who would not want to go anywhere near Alex Salmond or touch him with a barge pole. But is he wielding the power that we're hearing that he's wielding?
Well, it could have been, but look, I think that moment is now past. I think that there is so much bad blood between people in the SNP and people, you know, and Alex Salmond, the great big rift between him and Nicola Sturgeon, all the shenanigans round about the Scottish government and, you know, the cases against them within that Scottish government. And really, I think, you know, it was a last throw of the dice for Humza to try and get some arrangement. I think he would have been willing to make an arrangement with Ms Regan, who is the leader and the only MSP in the Alba party in the Scottish Parliament. In fact, she used to be Humza Yousaf's deputy, but I think the kibosh was put in that by a whole load of Humza's senior colleagues who said it simply would not be acceptable to make a deal anywhere near where Alex Salmond was.
Yeah, and it does seem incredible, doesn't it? I mean, you'll be used to being gazed upon by afar and Westminster correspondents who don't really understand Scotland. I like to think I understand it a little bit since I lived and worked up there for quite a while. But it's quite incredible how much has just turned to dust in the years since COVID. I mean, you know, you think back to when Nicola Sturgeon was sort of striding the world as one of the greatest leaders the world had ever seen. You know, we know that she was basically sort of pulling the strings for Boris Johnson to dance to. And I can't understand how it's all gone so horribly wrong in such a relatively short time. I haven't even mentioned the embezzlement charges and the ongoing police investigation. I mean, I can't believe it, really.
I mean, post-COVID, Nicola Sturgeon was 30 points ahead in the opinion polls in Scotland. But since then, as you rightly point out, it's all been downhill. We are now in a position, you know, as we speak, when the last 3 opinion polls show that Labour would get more seats than the SNP at the Westminster election, that the Tories would hold on to their seats. There was a by-election for a council seat in an SNP marginal constituency on Friday, and the Tories increased their vote by 10%. Where else in the entire country is that happening?
Well, I'm sure they'd like to say in lots of places is where you'll see it happening. And what about Stephen Flynn? I mentioned him earlier. A lot of people seem to think that he quite fancies a return to Scotland and wants to sort of kick Westminster into touch. That may or may not be something to do with whether he wins his seat in the general election. Can he sort of emerge as the next great hope of the SNP?
Look, Stephen Flynn's a very talented politician. He completely outmanoeuvred and outflanked everybody at Westminster when he unexpectedly, to use that word, took out Ian Blackford from the leadership. A formidable character. People like him. He's very popular within the party. He has a problem. Of course, he's in the wrong parliament. So he couldn't be the First Minister. Now, I think we're going to have to watch over the course of the next few days developments in this. You know, will Kate Forbes go for it? She got nearly 49% last time, and has been sitting at the side of the river in the past few days watching the bodies of her enemies float past. There's a suggestion that people are trying to draft in John Swinney, who was previously the deputy leader under Nicola Sturgeon. He was leader of the SNP once. And then, of course, there's Flynn hanging around as well. Let's see what happens. You know, let's get the resignation of Humza Yousaf, and we'll see what kind of process there'll be to elect a new leader and who the runners will be.
Have you guys got a book on what time he's going to resign?
Not yet. I mean, we're just... Look, I think in circumstances, Mike, where things have happened so quickly, you have to put arrangements in place. You need to know who in the short term would replace Humza Yousaf, whether that's a temporary thing or whatever. But these arrangements need to be made, and I suspect that might be one of the hold-ups that we've got in terms of getting any official announcements.
Sure. John, great to see you. Good to talk to you. Thank you very much indeed. John Boothman there, Scottish political correspondent at The Times.